from other South Asian countries. And it's neat because we need it very fast and very effective solution of this problem. Because of the migration, and its hungary and in other countries has a very big passive part of the labor market, and we cannot take these passive people very fast to the labor market because of under-educated people or take minorities, for example, and we cannot take from another place to the right place. And that's why that its manufacturing use Chinese Philippines workers from Philippines, for example. And another ways, these workers more cheap, like domestic workers. And I need to pay just the minimum wage for these people. And it's nearby it's a new tendency. I know many examples that hiring the South Asian workers, the domestic workers show how the process, teach everything about the job. After it, the domestic workers hired, and they stay just the migrant workers in these companies, and like a hand worker and low volume worker. And what's mean that the people who live from social benefits don't motivate, because I don't want to go to the labor market because these sufficient people take my job, sorry, and I have never have a place in these things. Another way, because we take every person to the labor market. It's not one example that come from Philippines, from a chemistry, pharmacist, working like hand worker. It's not added value, working not the national wide and EU wide as well. And I think maybe that's where I will show that how can solve this problem, that maybe the talent pool system, the new system, maybe take better, that the migrant worker, right person to the right place, and get more added value to the EU context and national-wide context of the economy. But we can take it. Okay, I have wage discrimination, and I said the migrant worker is cheaper, replace local workers. And in another way, the collective bargaining context, because these people never be a member of the trade union, never get the never high strength of the trade union. And if you see the local micro level, the bipartisan, and but change the staff, and for example, working just first country worker in this company, don't make trade unions, because working with a special permission and can work 3 or 4 years in this country, like with a special permission, and fear. I don't want to be a member of trade unions and don't fight, because I need this salary. I send back to home, and after it I go home. And I never find better salary, because it's not interest for me. And as make weaker this tendency, and if you see the tripartisan, the macro level, yeah, we know that the tendency that we increasing the year to year the minimum wage, but we see that sure that the trade union can be a neutral and see that without the national interests and fight the better minimum wage if the bigger part of this worker is non-EU or third country worker. That it see the context, maybe that if we, the European solution is the problem, maybe the adequate minimum wage can help this situation, or pay transparency. If we see, for example, the country with the 300-person staff and with the bigger part, third country worker and low wage and it can help in this situation, or and this is just open the question, and in the question section we can discuss about it. And I think the collective labor law will be more weaker and can function as well if we change these relations and this tendency it's keeping. Let's talk about it after it, and I'm very open, and I hope it will be many questions for me, and I hope I can answer, or we find out common the correct answer, and thank you for your attention.
Professor, köszönöm szépen. Thank you very much for Professor talking. Și în continuare o să rog pe domnul profesor Doa Bashar Sajbek de la Universitatea Cocelii and present your intervention.
Hello, dear colleagues. My name is Bashar Saipek. I'm from Kocaeli University, Turkey. Before starting my presentation, I would like to express my sincere gratitude and thanks to Professor and staff and his team who invited me and who gave me this brilliant opportunity to meet new colleagues from different universities and also to see my loved friends from after 10 years. Thank you very much. In order to use my limited time wisely, I will try to skip the introduction part, and then I will give some further details about my conclusion and the suggestions. So, as you see, the title of my presentation is Adapting Welfare Law to Social Change, Rethinking Social Protection in the 21st Century. I can press the button directly if you like.
It's working.
Okay. So, starting with the purpose of my presentation, it has three main axes in general. In the first part, I will talk about the mismatch between welfare law, traditional welfare law, and the social change that has been the case for the last couple of decades. And in the second part, identifying and giving further details about the new social risks, which are about the new digital technologies, AI technologies, and of course the demographic changes, which has been going on for the last couple of decades once again. And at the end, I will give further details about the adaptive legal solutions. Starting with the key arguments or assumptions, again, our study is based on three main axes. The first one is the assumption or the suggestion that the welfare law in its traditional way is now outdated and it doesn't give proper responses to the new challenges, new transformations, especially going on in the labor market. Secondly, traditional and classical employment-based models are now insufficient in order to provide a proper and comprehensive social protection for those especially who are employed in irregular and new types of work, jobs. And at the end, of course, in the light of these explanations, a legal reform is a necessity rather than being an option right now. So, traditional welfare law, I will not give so much detail about it because I'm sure everyone knows it very well. So, to skip it with just one sentence, I must say that the traditional welfare law was based on stable and full-time employment, also the male breadwinner model. But today's world is quite different than this one. So we reorganized the whole traditional welfare law accordingly to the new developments in the labor market. So, just the next one. Yeah. So, as I said, there are some serious limitations of traditional model right now. The first one is the slow legal adaptation. We must reorganize, regulate the existing welfare law according to the new transformations, new types of workers, new types of jobs, etc. Also, gender inequality, which I will not give further detail in this presentation, but maybe after the question and contribution part, we can talk about it all together. And as I said, exclusion of non-standard workers. These are the main challenges and the main limitations that the traditional welfare law face today. So what about the new social risks? As I said, everyone knows them very well, but in order to count them one by one to make a solid argument here, the first one is of course the digitalization and AI technologies. They reshape the world and create new inequalities. And secondly, of course, gig and platform work, which is closely interconnected between each other. And in the third part, we can see the migration and mobility, and at the end, of course, the very common problem of almost all welfare societies, aging population, which needs a more comprehensive and extensive care responsibility or care services from the government. And this makes a huge pressure on social security systems. So, in the light of these new social risks, and of course, it is possible to add new ones to this list, but I try to talk about only the most prominent ones here. So, the main question is here: the welfare law has to adapt at the same pace as these challenges. Otherwise, what happens? Otherwise, a huge gap between legal frameworks and real-life conditions, which may cause a real social crisis, social protection crisis in welfare societies. So, speaking about the labor market transformation, it is also obvious and it is known very well by almost everyone in this room. We can talk about the flexible and precarious work, multiple employers or platforms, and in the light of these transformations, of course, the worker status and the definition of workers or the employment has been highly blurred right now, in fact, some workers or some employment types are now invisible by the welfare law. From the traditional perspective, they are invisible to the welfare law. So the more fragmented and flexible work becomes, the more urgent the need to expand the scope of welfare law. This summarizes the whole situation very well, I think. So, what about the challenges in social protection? In fact, I already told most of them. So, as a result of these transformations and as a result of the mismatch between the traditional welfare law and the new developments and transformations, especially in labor market, there is a limited coverage. Now, the coverage became less, and it's not sufficient enough to cover all the new types of workers, new types of employment, and new types of relations between employee and employer. So, as a result of this limited coverage, there is a fragmentation of rights, and in fact, a dual welfare systems where some individuals, some workers enjoy really generous and expensive protection, while other workers and individuals receive restrictive and conditional support. It is classified in some countries as the migrants and the local or the native ones, but in some countries, in some welfare societies, even the local ones, not the migrants, they face this dual welfare system and this type of welfare discrimination as well. So there is also another point that I want you to look at. There are some tension points in both in the society in general, also in the labor market. The first one is flexibility versus legal certainty. As you know, sometimes there may be conflict between economic goals and political purposes and social purposes. We can see such a mistake, such a conflict between the economic efficiency and legal protection or social security. In short, flexibility is encouraged for economic efficiency and economic purposes, but it may reduce clarity and stability for legal protection in terms of social policy. There is also a similar tension between market efficiency and social justice, and also, of course, there is a very important and ongoing discussion for the last couple of decades, which is rights-based social protection or charity-based, assistance-based, whatever you call it. Sometimes religion-based, even the religion-based system, social protection. These are the main tension points of the welfare societies face today. So resolving these tensions is essential for building sustainable welfare systems that can respond effectively to contemporary social risks. Otherwise, there may be a huge social crisis, social shocks, and limited coverage of social protection. So this is the situation. So what happens in the part of new legal approaches? The main approach here is to break the connection between social protection and employment status. It was the old time, the traditional perspective. But right now we have to break this connection and we have to find new ways of universal coverage, universal scope, which started with the universal basic income and other minimum income schemes discussions. As you see, these are new developments which breaks the link between employment status and social protection. Because as we already know, there's a transformation going on at the labor markets right now, and everyone, every individual in the labor market do not have the same opportunities, same qualifications to reach the regular, stable, and classical type of employment. That makes them automatically out of social protection. This is why universal basic income and other similar social protection schemes came into the agenda in many welfare societies right now. Also, expansion of worker definition to include platform work, gig economy, self-employed workers, and temporary workers, etc. So we see an extension in the definition of worker, which goes beyond the traditional definition of worker right now. All of these, again, it is possible to add new ones to this list, of course, but the common point of all these developments is that all of these seek to provide income security beyond employment status. The ultimate purpose here is that to align legal legal frameworks with the realities of modern labor markets. We can skip here because I will not talk about the gender dimension because it may take another 10 minutes, but our time is limited, as you know.
I give you my time.
Thank you so much. But I'm not prepared for this right now, logically. So I will continue with the role of law right now. So what about the role of law, the labor law and the social security law and other specific social protection law? So it is for sure, it is a very useful and effective tool for social inclusion. It is the best way to include socially all people without, regardless their employment status, based on sometimes the citizenship ties or based on just being the member of that society, even if that person is not a legal citizen, but just a member of a society. So, secondly, thanks to law, thanks to well-functioning law, how can I say, thanks to well-functioning social protection or social welfare law, it is possible to prevent structural inequality. Therefore, we can say that law is the tool for promoting equality and social justice. But of course, the situation on the contrary is also possible if there is no well-functioning social protection law in a country. Also, maybe the most important part, there is an urgent need to regulate the welfare law in order to cover the new and digital risks. It is crucially important to prevent new forms of discrimination. As we can see in its traditional and classical way, it is not fully ready or completely ready to cover these new types of discrimination. This is why we call that there is an urgent need to re-establish or regulate the existing welfare law. So law can either reinforce existing inequalities or help to reduce them as the summary. So at the end, the conclusion and suggestion of my presentation is that we started with the mismatch, the mismatch between traditional legal frameworks and contemporary social realities, and we said that this mismatch creates new forms of inequality and exclusion, which is not easy to address with the traditional welfare law in its existing situation. So this is why we say that reform is legally necessary, not an option. It is not an option, but a necessity. So welfare law must evolve to expand, first of all, its scope, redefine key concepts such as worker or new types of working, and as the third one, integrate overlooked areas such as care work, which is the gender dimension of the social protection. So reforms must be guided by the principles of course, equality, human dignity, and inclusivity. As the last words, the transformation must be built on three main axes. The first one is preserving the historical values or welfare systems. Secondly, embracing technological and social innovation. And as the third one, strengthening the universal social justice. Thank you so much, and special thank you so much.
I thank you, Professor Goa, for your interesting presentation. And now,
and now I have a pleasure to ask dear Professor Dan Sok to present his presentation. I do apologize for this misunderstanding. Now we have a pleasure to listen to the presentation prepared by our dear colleague Radoš Petru from Bucharest University of Economic Studies, and colleague will make a presentation. We'll talk about trade union representation of workers in the context of digitalization of work. So, dear colleague, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's very nice to meet you. And this was some just present, the salute after Easter for all of you. And now for today I will present. I don't want to switch back just to be sure that I will not lose the way of the presentation. The role of the trade unions in protecting the employees during this period of AI and digitalization. So, as an agenda, I will propose you the next topic, some introductory aspects Then I will underline some essential aspects regarding the adaptation of the trade unions to digitalization of work, and then some conclusions. First of all, we know the fact that this rapid integration of artificial intelligence is not a technological shift, it's just a structural transformation of labor relation. And this is a very serious challenge for the trade unions in order to protect the employees with this situation in this field of artificial intelligence and digitalization. It's very interesting the evolving of the trade union history. They started in England, as we know. First time they were forbidden, the trade union, but afterwards they developed very spectacular and they became a force, a political force, not only force in the labor. And now we are in the next stage of the protecting of the employees by the trade union. And first, a very interesting fact. Nowadays, the trade union usually react when the employees announce some problems, some breaches in their labor rights. But taking into consideration the rapid evolvement of the technology, now reaction must be much faster, anticipatory, maybe before the problem arises. Because the problem in our days recall a very serious reaction by the trade union. And I give an example, the logistics sector, with predictive algorithms which are already optimizing and workflows in real time. And now we have some effects like job displacement or intensification of surveillance from the employer. And from about all of these, the trade unions must have some reactions in time. And nevertheless, I want to underline some features of the, let's say, trade unions. What are the most important challenges in the field of trade unions regarding the protection of the employees in that area? First, union must therefore negotiation algorithms, not just contract. And it's very important to know the fact that the labor relation is not always about the money, it's about the safety on work. And now the safety on work means also algorithms, because we are talking also about the work on platform. So we speak about the transparency in algorithmic decision, making access to auditing mechanism and limits on fully automated decision of employment. And this is represents also fundamental expansion of the collective bargaining. We have to be sure that we have to use ourselves with the collective bargaining, focused on this topic also. How can we conclude a collective labor agreement which can contain also clauses referring to transparency, algorithmic, and all of these things. And of course, I want to underline the existing of the directive from 2024 regarding the working condition on platform that must be implemented from the EU member states until 2026. It is very challenging, very interesting. And also, it's not only in a legal framework transposition, but also in the working relation by collective labor agreement. So we negotiating algorithms, not just contracts. Also, I want to present you a very interesting case study from Bologna in Italy with the Liverpool. It's a very interesting case study in court in 2020. The Bologna court fined with 50,000 euro the Deliveroo platform because he had an algorithm which was discriminator, used a ranking system to allocate work penalizing riders who missed session, not distinguished between unjustified absence, legitimate reasons such as illness of participation of the strike. And this effectively restricted workers' access to work opportunities and was a discrimination, and as a result, the labor was fined with this amount. Very interesting, the fact that the trade union must be prepared to protect the employees in such case studies. When an employee which is employed at the Libero is victim of this discrimination, like it was in this court in Bologna with the Libero, he will address also to the trade union. What will be the solution of the trade union in this situation? It's very challenging. Other aspects, the right to explanation and contestation. Workers are affected by algorithmic decision often, and it's very important to understand the ability of challenge them. For example, an employee might receive a performance rating generated by an AI system, and this could be discriminated. For instance, the rating of the performance of the employee can be made by an AI. So what happens if the employee says that it's not correct, this is not a very good system, he can address also to the trade union. But the trade unions are prepared now to fight with these new technologies. Let's hope, yes, I don't see, let's say, a trade union representative in the room. Maybe they will read our presentation and will try to find a solution, but it's very challenging for them also in the field of collective labor agreement. Also, it's very important, meaningful reskilling and lifelong learning. This lifelong learning is not just metaphoric, it's a condition for having a very short place of work. And also, it's very important the fact that the trade unions must be prepared for facing this new challenging by using themselves the methods of lifelong learning. And that means dedicated training budgets, pay time for education programs aligned with future job profiles. And this will create the premise, the fact that the technological change does not simply lead to exclusion. We can use it in our purpose to help us, but for this we have to be prepared to, let's say that we can be friends with this new technology. Also, it's very important data protection and limits to digital surveillance. And this is another aspect. The trade unions must therefore advocate for strict limits on data collection, clear rules on data usage, and prohibition of invasive scoring system. For instance, as a result of implementation of GDPR regulation in Romania, the employer has not the right to surveillance with video camera in every situation. But a lot of trade member unions doesn't know this, and they ask us. Our employer wants to put in our office starting tomorrow cameras. It is legal? No, it's not legal. But you have to know why it's not legal and what measure can be taken prior to those cameras. And this is very challenging because now we have other, let's say, important facts like scoring systems. So we have to be prepared, and trade union must be prepared to face these challenges which are rising for these new methods of surveillance. Also, we have a digital transformation of union themselves. This is very important fact. This includes digital platforms for member and decision-making, online communities, geographically dispersed worker, the use of AI with analysis and case identification, and this is also very important for reaching young people and more mobile workers, because it's not easy for trade unions to get new members. So you can arrive to a new members by transform yourself to make a step further digitalization. So this is very important for the trade union. And now I saw that our colleague, Professor Mary Pataki, if I'm not mistaken, he presented very good the situation on foreign workers in a collective labor. And I have also such a presentation because it's a very important gap nowadays in protecting those workers. For instance, in Romania, we have many workers from countries outside the European Union, like Nepal, Sri Lanka, and on average, the government allows the entry of 100,000 workers into the labor market, and they need trade union protection. They are very exposed. We have legislation to protect them. The European Union has a priority by protecting those workers, but we can do better. And a trade union for them could be a very good choice in order to help them to integrate much better in the labor market in Romania and in UE, in the European Union, because it's a priority for the European Union member states, and not only, I'm sure that for all the member states. As a conclusion, of course, we can speak more about this important topic, but I wanted to underline some important aspects that we have today. The question is no longer whether AI will transform, it already is. The labor market, our lives are transformed and influenced by AI. The real question is this transformation will be governed in a way that will promote the workers' right and also fairness. And the trade union has a crucial role to play, but to do so they must evolve strategically, technologically, and institutionally. And Professor Moarcaș is not here, but he presented the history of the working with the industrialization, the Gutenberg situation, and so on. Now we have another AI. ChatGPT, Gemini, and also they are another important era in our history, and we have to be prepared to face it and to find the most constructive solution to solve those problems. I want to thank you very much for your attention. I want to thank Professor Danțov for invitation and for organization to organize this conference, which is also a fest for our professor of labor law around the world. Thank you very much.
And now I like to present my presentation with the help of Ms. Kovacevic. It's about this, it's need the help. Îmi cer scuze, asistentul meu a dispărut la tribunal să semneze niște hotărâri. Da. Din vivere de index filosofal. Este tot profesor. La pronunțare, dacă nu ești, parcă nu ești. O să prezint în românește, însă o să vedeți că aveți și ideile principale în engleză. I speak Romanian, but it's presented the principal idea in English. Tema privește necesitatea unui cadru juridic adecvat privind reglementările utilizării inteligenței artificiale la locul de muncă. Multe dintre aceste aspecte s-au spus în prima intervenție a doamnei profesor Ana Claudia Moarcaș, pe care și eu am citat-o de mai multe ori aici. De asemenea, și ceilalți care au prezentat au atins anumite chestiuni. Și de aceea vreau să merg foarte repede, să vă prezint în primul rând contextul general. Deci piața muncii este evident că este într-o continuă transformare. Și această transformare este influențată de digitalizare și automatizare, de globalizările economice și de crizele sociale. Eu am dat exemplu aici COVID, însă astăzi știm că avem și criza economică legată de războiul din instructarea Ormuz și criza climatică. Tot am discutat despre dreptul climei mai devreme cu domnul profesor Sicler. Și alte crize care se vor prefigura. Aceste schimbări impun adaptarea legislației muncii. Repet, nu insist pe prea multe situații. Doamna Moarcă și-a prezentat mai multe aspecte. Eu încerc numai să punctez chestiunile pe care cred eu că o să le expun în lucrarea scrisă. Și, în primul rând, m-am referit la mediul de muncă modern. Mediul de lucru este dinamic, evident, și este influențat de factori precum cei tehnologici, evident cei sociali, că munca presupune o relație interumană, sau chiar dacă este o relație între om și mașină, caracterul social nu dispare, și de asemenea organizațional. Aici inteligența artificială devine un element central în acest ecosistem. S-au arătat și au fost mai multe teorii care arată cum inteligența artificială riscă fie să ne fure locurile de muncă, să ne înlăture după piața muncii. Eu, acum 2 ani, am încercat să scriu o chestiune până când roboții ne vor înlocui. Situație în care această inteligență artificială va fi prezentă din ce în ce mai mult în viața noastră și treptat, treptat, fie vom semăna cu ea, fie ne va da la o parte. Nu știu care va fi situația, însă trebuiesc toate măsuri și o mare atenție. Mediul acesta de muncă este influențat, bineînțeles, de inteligența artificială, care are un rol incontestabil. Inteligența artificială este aplicată în diverse domenii. S-au arătat înainte, în expunerile făcute, de o serie întreagă de roluri pe care le are inteligența artificială. Eu o să enumăr câteva. Deci, recrutare și selecție. Este evident că scrierea CV-urilor va fi apanajul inteligenței artificiale, dacă nu chiar selecția în sine. Ceea ce va face ca părerea subiectivă să primeze, sau prejudecățile, să primeze în alegerea potențialilor salariați. De asemenea, evaluarea performanței. Aici deja sunt discuții ample, pentru că angajatorul, așa cum știm, fixează criteriile de performanță în regulamentul intern în regulă și dacă lasă pe seama inteligenței artificiale, ar putea să nu fie tocmai oportun sau în consonanță cu mediul său de lucru. Supravegherea angajaților. Domnul profesor Pătru s-a referit anterior la acest lucru. Această monitorizare a angajaților care a creat multe dispute și a dat naștere unei adevărate practici a Curții Europene de Justiție, dar și în dreptul nostru intern, este evident că ea trebuie corelată și să existe acea idee sau acea proporționalitate. Și desigur să nu fie posibil un alt mod și cât de cât să nu fie așa de invaziv. Pentru că nu putem supraveghea în zonele care presupun, de exemplu, intimitatea salariatului, la vestiar, la toaletă sau în alte chestiuni. Este de-a dreptul de neconceput. Și, în fine, gestionarea riscurilor. Aici, la gestionarea riscurilor, un rol important revine sănătății, securității muncă. De regulă, noi, în practica internă aici, ne rezumam numai la semnarea acelei fișe de instruire a muncii, semnai și erai deja cunoscător a ceea ce se poate întâmpla la locul de muncă. Acum, aceste riscuri vor fi mult mai atent monitorizate de inteligența artificială, care ne va bombarda cu chestionare pe cei care lucrăm în activități mai deosebite, despre a răspunde să vadă nivelul de pregătire. Asta se preconizează, s-a elaborat deja de Ministerul Muncii, multe chestionare care vor fi lansate către angajate. Deși oferă eficiență, inteligența artificială ridică și provocări etice. Practic, eu consider că este cea mai mare provocare. Adică inovarea trebuie să țină seama de etică. Pentru că dacă nu vom avea în vedere aspectele etice ale utilizării inteligenței artificiale, riscăm, așa cum v-am spus, fie să ne îndreptăm cu pași repezi spre o mașină, spre un robot, fie să pierdem din vedere empatia și aspectul uman al oricărei acțiuni, inclusiv cea legată de activitatea pe care o numim de mii de ani muncă. În acest sens, despre deciziile automatizate a vorbit doamna profesor Marcăș anterior, însă vreau să mai subliniez numai că algoritmii, care s-a făcut vorbire în mai toate intervențiile, influențează, evident, accesul la locul de muncă, am vorbit de recrutare și selecție, promovarea profesională. Aici situațiile pot duce la discriminare, așa cum a arătat domnul profesor Țuța, pentru că deciziile astea automatizate au oarecare bias, se cheamă, adică pot avea și erori. De exemplu, ați văzut la Claude și ChatGPT-ul care halucinează. De exemplu, dă niște răspunsuri sunt practic de neconceput. Practic am văzut într-un articol pe care l-a trimis una dintre studentele doctorande aici, că avea 100% folosirea inteligenței artificiale. Și n-am crezut. Și am verificat bibliografia. La o notă de subsol am găsit un autor și o operă și am verificat întâi autor, urmă opera, urmă dacă sunt chestii similare și nu l-am găsit. Practic, mașinăria care a făcut lucrarea a halucinat și a luat un nume de autor și o operă de la alt autor. De exemplu, eu m-am găsit ca Țoptorul în citări. O lucrare din 2014 pe care eu n-am scris. Sau Verigrădeanu nu e și Verigrădeanu e A Verigrădeanu, tocmai ca să păcălească plagiatul și să ajungem la situația asta. Și de-aia vă spun că și la promovarea profesională putem să avem surprize de genul ăsta. Și, în fine, distribuția resurselor, care este cel mai important aspect al perioadei pe care o traversăm de plină criză. Acești algoritmi, aceste decizii, aș vrea să spun, bazate pe algoritmi, acești algoritmi nu sunt neutri. Și așa cum încerc să subliniez, pot exista prejudecăți anterioare. Aici ar fi nevoie de echitate algoritmică. Sunt mai multe definiții ale echității, inclusiv ale echității algoritmice. Nu există numai o singură definiție. Dar toate au în vedere paritatea demografică. Acel discriminare de gen de care s-a vorbit aici. De asemenea, egalitatea de șanse este, în dreptul nostru intern, este pe cale să se implementeze, este un proiect de lege privind transparența salarială a egalității de șanse între femei și bărbați. Și de asemenea, în ultimul rând, o corectitudine predicativă, cum ar fi în privința timpului de muncă, pentru că trebuie să știe, sau altor aspecte legate de executarea în sine a contractului de muncă. Și în privința metodelor de evaluare, echitatea aceasta algoritmică implică indicatori statistici și va apare alături de statistică, cred, o altă disciplină, dateologia, adică o știință care va arăta cum să grupăm, cum să colectăm și cum să folosim datele. Auditul algoritmic, se vorbește din ce în ce mai mult de acest lucru, este o situație greu de realizat. Vă dați seama, avem creatorul de software, operatorul, beneficiarul, toți ăștia trebuie practic monitorizați de auditul ăsta de algoritm. Nu știu în ce măsură va reuși să acopere toată situația. Și, în fine, cel mai important lucru pentru noi juriștii, evaluarea impactului asupra drepturilor fundamentale ale omului. Acest lucru necesită o abordare interdisciplinară. Este evident că dreptul muncii nu se știe suficient sine însuși fără a fi în conexiune cu celelalte ramuri de drept și mai ales cu drepturile fundamentale ale omului. Ca limite și riscuri, am găsit niște probleme majore, s-a discutat aici, o să le enumăr numai, opacitatea algoritmului, acel black box, care le limitează în aprecierea importanței sale și, desigur, de aici, lipsa transparenței. Astăzi este la modă să peste tot unde auzim, transparență și așa mai departe în relațiile de muncă. Practic, reconfigurarea dreptului muncii are în vedere această transparență cât mai accentuată. Și, în fine, ceea ce a spus domnul profesor Țicla, discriminarea indirectă pe care o poate crea. Și de aici nu mai e decât un pas pentru un conflict între eficiență și echitate. Ceea ce interesează în acest ecosistem al folosirii inteligenței artificiale la un mediu de muncă sănătos este protecția vieții private. Inteligența artificială poate duce la o supraveghere excesivă. S-au dat exemple aici de monitorizarea aceea excesivă. Sunt multe situații prezentate de Curtea Europeană de Justiție, cum ar fi utilizarea muncitorilor spanioli care plecau la un loc de muncă mobil și erau urmăriți pe GPS. De asemenea, și angajatorii noștri folosesc această metodă de a-și urmări angajații sau alte metode care îmi arată de câte ori ating mouse-ul, dacă sunt prezent la lucru pe platformă, în fața unui calculator sau nu. De asemenea, și analiza comportamentului. Pentru că, așa cum am spus, sunt multe diferențe între aplicarea inteligenței astea artificiale și modul în care un funcționar de modă veche de la resurse umane rezolvă situații. Și mai avem o problemă. Protecția datelor, care impune transparență, proporționalitate, așa cum am arătat, și mai ales dreptul la intervenție umană. Fără acest drept la intervenție umană, care să fie primordial față de modul în care inteligența artificială înțelege să ne ofere protecția vieții noastre private, îl consider de mare importanță în raport cu inteligența artificială. Aici s-ar pune problema și securității angajaților. S-a discutat despre prevenirea riscurilor și mai ales a celor psihosociale, de optimizarea muncii și mai ales despre efectele negative, de tehnostres, care din ce în ce mai mult utilizat, de burnout, care o doctorandă a domnului profesor Țicla are o temă bine despre această epuizare la locul de muncă și poate crea și anxietate, sentimentul izolării față de colectiv, mai ales munca pe platforme, când nu-ți întâlnești colegii, abar n-ai cu cine ești coleg și nu ai cu socializa prea mult. Și, în fine, presiunea constantă. Pentru că, practic, eu am constatat că folosirea mijloacelor astea video atunci când a intervenit pandemia în predarea cursurilor, îmi lua mai mult timp decât dacă m-aș fi dus fizic. Că ba veneau 2-3 și să plecăm și noi, domn profesor, ba nu mai veneau. Deci era mult mai lejer, pe când aici nu mai puteam să... Trebuia să rămân, că totul să înregistrat. Aș mai fi discutat despre incluziunea digitală, despre formarea profesională continuă, însă o să trec direct la concluzii. Că lucrurile acestea sunt mai facile. Drept concluzii, cred că inteligența artificială oferă oportunități majore, dar și riscuri. Este necesar, după părerea mea, un cadru legal. Acest cadru legal trebuie conturat cu mare responsabilitate. Nu așa să adoptăm, cum s-a făcut în ultima vreme, în legislația noastră, prin cărțile pe care vi le-am oferit, o să vedeți că sunt un noian de acte normative. În domeniul dreptului muncii avem peste 40.000 și s-au mai adăugat anul trecut foarte multe, sunt 2 volume aproape, care nu fac decât să, în loc să întărească cadrul legislativ, fie să fragmenteze, fie să, să facă inutil, cum ar fi împărțirea locului de muncă sau da, metodologii, tot felul de scheme. Dar n-a lămurit până acum ce să facă angajatorul în concret. Că se ceartă și acum, dacă se numească o comisie, dacă se numească un responsabil, sau chestii de-astea de...
Trebuie să facă un registru, asta e obligatoriu cel puțin.
Și care să-l cumpere de la inspecția muncii, să fie cineva care să aibă, să ia și niște bani pentru concert.
Și face și comisie, că așa scrie la...
Păi și nu mai numește responsabil, că nu mai înțeleg. Și responsabil și comisie.
Și dacă are 5 angajatori?
Nu contează de numească.
Legea nu distinge, mobilex.
Așa va fi și cu transparența salarială. Să vedeți ce vor pune probleme oamenii, că la
Va
bani,
fi mai complicat
la bani e și mai rău. Bun. Termin imediat și trece la discuții. Mai am 2 chestii să vă spun. Deci protecția sporită a drepturilor fundamentale. Asta cred eu că este un punct nodal. Și echilibru între inovație și etică. Desigur, viitorul muncii va depinde de o reglementare cât de cât responsabilă. Vă mulțumesc. Acum, la profesor, putem discuta, mai avem 20 de minute.
Despre tema dumneavoastră.
Nu despre a mea, despre a dumneavoastră, dacă... Cum ziceți? Putem lua pauză mai devreme sau putem trece la discuții. Pentru că, așa cum v-am spus, la spatele acestui de abstracte, prostii de abstracte, sunt niște note și vă puteți nota ce vreți să întrebați, dar am făcut așa, în stil școlăresc.
Domnul profesor, există sloganul, cred că a ajuns și în țările vecine. Pauzele lungi și dese, continuați.
Nu știu, domnule, că sunt mai nou în ureche. Eu, mă rog, trebuie să fac datoria și să spun că am ajuns la punctul de discuție. Colega Loredana Tănase, am înțeles că știe ce s-a reparat la Brașov, nu mi-a comunicat. Mi-a dat un mesaj că și-a spart telefonul. Nu știu eu cum să spun. Pentru că mi-a spus că și-a spart telefonul și n-a avut să mă anunțe. Deci dacă sunt chestiuni, you have question about the whole intervention. Yes,
Thank you very much.
Profesor Karadeniz,
Professor Karadeniz, I work at Pamukkale University, Department of Labor Economics and Industrial Relations. Thank you very much for excellent organization. It's so important together listening you and your colleagues. I have a question to Serbian colleagues, Kovacevic and social reports. Thank you very much for interesting and so useful presentation. How can we extend social security coverage, teleworkers especially? Most of them describe themselves as a self-employed. And how can we implement social security law, local law or EU law or the other countries' law? It's a big question. But the second law, how can we extend social security coverage, effective coverage especially? Most of them, for instance, in Turkey, digital nomads, we estimate that the numbers reach 11,000. They live in Antalya near the sea and they are working on computer. But they take their status as self-employed. They don't pay tax. They don't pay social security contribution. Even they are registered to tax office or they have a debt, contribution debt, and they cannot use social security system effectively. They cannot benefit from health services or pension, and etc. In terms of the effective coverage and legal coverage, how can we extend social security for them? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Shall I answer? Immediately.
May I complete the question, if you allow me? I just want to know if in your country you have already adopted a regular framework for this kind of category? And if yes, please give us an example. Thank you.
Okay, Dirkovic, thank you very much.
For Miskovac, another question? No.
Okay. Well, the professors, thank you both for your questions. When it comes to social security, I intentionally skipped that issue because there is another presentation of a colleague from Castilla-La Mancha University that she's going to talk literally about social security of digital nomads. But when it comes to that issue that you asked, well, some of these workers are self-employed, some of them are employees actually. When it comes to both groups, but especially employees, of course, that is not just the issue of legal framework, but also the issue of collaboration between tax administrations or when it comes to mandatory social insurance from one state and another, and third and fourth. So it's a question of tax law and social security law, or somewhere in between. So we need improved legal framework, but also improved supervision of implementation, and it is not possible, in my opinion, without international collaboration between funds for mandatory social insurance and tax administrations, and there some kind of I don't know how to say, some kind of linkages or networks which can be helpful. But let's hope that that presentation that is going to be dedicated to social security digital nomads will provide some wishes. Maybe just to stop at this point with this answer. And dear professor, thank you very much for your question. When it comes to the Republic of Serbia, we have many digital nomads in the Republic of Serbia, but you can presuppose that that large number is actually a consequence of the fact that we do not regulate that issue. They are regulated only partially in the tax law, but when it comes to labor law and social security law, these categories are not recognized. We do not have a regime of special visas. I know that in Romania, in Italy, in Spain, there are special visas. Yes, we don't have special visas. Of course, in some countries they're introduced in order to attract digital nomads because they're not unfair competition for domestic workers, and at the same time they're investing in the local economy since they're at least consumers. Or in other countries, special visas are introduced in order to provide business identity. In the Republic of Serbia, unfortunately, although we have so many digital nomads, we don't have any regulation, specific regulation regarding that. So unfortunately, I cannot.
Thank you, but do you see any perspective in order to be regulated?
Yes, if there are initiatives.
Through a special law or through the labor
there are
code?
Just initiatives when it comes to tax law. When it comes to labor legislation, there was one initiative to regulate that issue by special law. What is specific for Serbia? Unfortunately, because of many reasons, among much else political reasons, adoption of new labor code is prolonged when we have fragmentation of labor legislation, lateral extension of labor legislation, adopting special laws regulating small issues, without, a systematic approach. So there was an initiative, a working group for drafting the law concerning, it was a strange title of that draft law, flexible work, something like that, was formed, but no even first version of the draft we didn't.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mulțumim.
I don't know in the language, but I have to speak. Just like in primul moment, dacă este posibil.
Yes.
Numai că acum, sincer, nu știu în ce limbă să vorbesc.
Doamna este judecător la Curtea de Apel Belgrad și este doctoratul.
John, eu sunt din Spania.
Cătălina Zmuntărică, scuzați-mă. Este colega noastră de la Albacete, Cătălina Zmuntărică, care a dat doctoratul cu prieten bun al Universității noastre și al Facultății de Drept și al meu personal, Antonio Bailos Grav. Vă rog, scuzați-mă că v-am confundat, nu văd până acolo.
Welcome to everyone. I've tried to speak a little bit in English, but my English, my vocabulary in English is very overly because I don't speak in English very fluent and very only occasionally. Okay, the question that you do it is very hard to contest because the problem with the self-employers in normal digitals is we have a voice, but that voice doesn't see the question in order to social protection. Only only taxes. And the problem, what I see in the normal digital is that they can stay a time in a country and then they can move to another country. The proposal that I think this is very important to take in consideration is in the self-employed is it's a bit difficult to try to find a solution internationally. Very difficult. A possibility that I think it is the bilateral convention into the states, but that the protection will be very fragmented, don't over, and I don't know. And when I think in social protection, I think to in the long term, because pension effectively. And then with social health, the health when if that self-employment have, for example, an accident, who will pay that accident?
Compensation.
Yes, that is very difficult. My presentation will be like very incipient in that way to the normal digitals, but I think it's very difficult to find a solution to it.
Thank you very much for this. I'm waiting your presentation, but I should add some view about this field. Maybe we can establish an international labor and social security inspection system based on AI.
That's it.
Or AI labor inspection system, you know.
Yes.
And without person in presence, maybe AI labor inspection system can detect who are registered or not easily, so we should, I think, improve new solution against atypical works, atypical solutions. We should need,
We should,
yes.
we should.
Yeah.
Because the future we don't know what will happen with that people.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and the most people comes from Estados Unidos, United States, and they prefer place like Thailand, like Spain, where they have a good life, no, and they can find a way to don't pay contributions taxes, to don't pay taxes that in that state. And in the future, in not only in the future, if that person have an accident or have any problem, enfermedad,
Tomorrow the Professor Navarro Sanchez Rodas, Universitate de Sevilla, has an intervention about this situation. About the regular.
Okay, I'm waiting tomorrow.
No, but if you,
En el panel español.
if you allow
Depende
me,
de
I
Caradenis,
En
mais en Espagne.
effet, je peux parler français.
D'accord.
Je peux comprendre un peu. C'est possible.
if you,
Caradenis înseamnă în turcă domn profesor Marea Neagră. Asta e numele domnului profesor. Nu Marea Mediterană, Agdenis, nu Marea Egea, Dalar Denis, nu Marmara Denis. Caradenis.
Black Sea. My surname Black Sea, yes.
Este
Caradenis.
așa că...
Păi de la soare.
if you allow me, I will try to give you an answer and at the same time to raise the questions that I wanted to raise it for my colleagues in the panel. You know the directive regarding the conditions on the platform?
Yes.
Try to answer to this question, which means that in order to benefit from all these social security rights, you should be presumed, or you should have a labor relationship or a labor contract. And this status, the content of the labor contract, generate all the social security benefits. So,
You refer to the self-employed?
to all these atypical categories of
Because
workers.
I don't think so self-employed coverage like that. The employee, yes.
No, but all the
I
typical.
have to say.
Uber, take the example of Uber, for
Yes.
instance, is the same thing.
Yes, we have a coverage, and in Spain, the legislation in that way that try to make equivalence into.
You see, it's like this, to presume or to make the
Yes, but
equivalence.
it's a little bit difficult because the people, I refer to non-digitals because I think they are a special category. It's not, I don't assimilate to telework people. I don't assimilate that crossing el trabajo transfronterizo. I don't know they are the same because the people can stay in that state 5 or 6 months, then they can try.
That you should take it case by case, you know?
I think
They
so,
have some
but it's very
similarities,
difficult.
but
It's very
they
difficult.
are also very different, you know?
But it's very interesting.
The question that I wanted to raise to my colleagues is, due to all these discussions, to what extent do the current EU labor legislation enable the law to proactively shape the digital environment or transition of work, rather than provide a reactive legal framework? In my view, at this stage, the EU labor law is reactive to the reality. As you said, you see, it's not prepared for it. So that's why it's very difficult.
We have to try the way to find a solution.
Yeah, but we cannot do it without.
A solution is the timeout.
To have a coffee to extend the discussion. Thank you very much anyway.
Everything is prepared for the coffee. Break.
Avem pauză.
Paul, vrei să mă arăt?
Ne luăm mai multe.
Dacă ai bani mai mulți, stai liniștită.
How are you, dear
Am
colleagues?
pasat
How are you?
de
Dear colleagues from Andalusia. Short.
Apologize for my
Ultimii, aici se niște
Just to since it was too early and we traveled a lot in there, but everything is going to be okay. I still cannot believe that I met colleagues that wrote the reviews, that are friends of Thais and so I'm too happy. I'm so happy because Thais told me they are great because they're my friends and now I No, I just so I know in person. Oh, that would be great.
Da, mergea mai devreme, trebuie să meargă la firmă de la IPT. Se simte foarte ceva. Așa este că și grav.
Nu știu unde, Doamne, iartă-mă. Eu știu că am dat de el aici, dar s-au făcut cofiloate astea, au și pare altă, nu se uită ce e. Și așa au plătit, ținută pentru plătită trebuie să fie cu
Pero es nuestra escuela, de nuestra escuela y realmente
Să pun pe pauză ăla. Am primit 2 bucăți. Toată lumea a intrat pe aceeași adresă de Wi-Fi și s-a întâlnit. Toată lumea a intrat pe una sau am intrat pe ăla. Era în
me gustaría muchísimo y además me gustaría porque
Am și dat-o jos. Am și dat-o jos.
Ah, bellissimo, pure io.